This podcast is called Mastering Business Growth because I'm trying to master business growth. So I do that by speaking to people like yourself who've got a wealth of experience in various different areas. So please, can we start with who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Jonathan Haywood. I have been working within customer experience and customer insight for a lot of my career. Firstly in automotive, more lately into retail, where I was at Holland Barrett for 11 years. Finished there in March. For the last 3 years, I was a director who was looking after digital trading, but then also customer retention and a load of omni-channel development areas, so things like loyalty and apps and things like that. And then since then, I have been working for myself as a consultant, working with direct-to-consumer brands, helping them mostly with their retention strategies.
Take me back to the beginning. Why did you get into this? Did you just fall into it?
Yeah, I did just fall into it. I remember...
Were you a musician back then? Or?
I was, yeah. I was in a ska band back then. Yeah, so I went to university, did a part maths degree. I was originally going to go into teaching and then thought that was a terrible idea. So I remember getting a phone call off my mum after my last exam, and she said, well, either you got to get a job or you got to move home because we're not going to pay your rent anymore. So I thought,
man, there's always ultimatums.
I know, yeah, which actually was quite it was a good ultimatum. So I landed on my feet. I managed to get a job within customer insight quite quickly, and sort of it just kind of snowballed from there. So I've been, I was using my maths element, analysing data, but mostly analysing customer service, customer satisfaction.
Did you even know what that was when you got into it, or did you think it's a job?
No, it was a job, right? But then, you start to manage teams, and then I sort of moved slightly and started working for Porsche, the car company. Again, really trying to be their first person who was looking at customer insight. Trying to improve their service and sales aspects. I think they just got to that point where they'd realised at the time, sort of 2000, they didn't really have many competitors, right? And then things like the Audi R8 came along, and the TT as a smaller one, and Jaguar were doing like sports cars, and suddenly their customers, Porsche's customers, were starting to go elsewhere for their fancy cars. So they realised, oh, hang on a minute, we should probably think about what our service and experience looks like. So I came in to sort of tell them some hard truths about that.
That's quite a bold thing to do. Did you feel confident in yourself this early on into your career that you can make decisions on behalf of a company that big?
I think so, because I was backed up by my line managers, right? So I think if it was just me, there had been absolutely no chance. And there was a few times like that. We would be going into franchises and car franchises. Generally, car franchises, they don't just have a Porsche dealership. They've got a BMW one and a Mercedes one, and so they're multi-car dealerships led by millionaires, right? Who know how to sell cars much better than I do. So when you've got this like 20-something lad coming in, telling him that actually your service is a bit shit, and your customers are telling us that your sales team are a bit crap, and these are things you need to sort out. And by the way, we're also trying to get you to a minimum set of standards, which means that when you give a courtesy car out, can you make sure it's not the Vauxhall Corsa that's gathering dust and rust at the back of the garage, and so things like that. If it was just me in some of those meetings, it would have been difficult. But I had the gravitas of my line managers. So those sorts of things are important, I think, when you're starting out, is that you can feel like you've got something to say as long as you've got the backing and the freedom to say it from the people around you. I think that's a good leadership lesson, really.
Yeah, of course. What was next then?
I then went, I started it at the RAC, Motoring Services, went back there because Porsche was down in Reading, I was living in the Midlands. My wife and I wanted to start a family, all that kind of stuff. Went back to the RAC. That was more of a sort of a heavy analytical role. Did that for, 3 or 4 years. And then I was just getting a bit bored with it. It's it's basically an insurance product, and insurance is boring because it wasn't fulfilling this thing that I needed, which was being close enough to customers to understand how they're feeling, what they're doing. It was a bit too far away from that.
That's something I wanted to pick at, because I mean, we can go into this in more detail later, but like you were saying upstairs, you're effectively looking for bottlenecks across the line, and the knock-on effects certain things have. And yeah, it's such an interesting thing, but we'll go into that later. So, but I do assume being close to the ground allows you to see, well, hang on, they're in the back when they should be, going to that customer.
Yeah.
Things like that, which again, we'll go into more detail later. So please do continue.
Yeah. So got out of the RSE, moved into retail, which is when I moved into Holland Barrett, and basically I went there. They about 18 months ago launched their loyalty program, and they needed someone to come in and start looking at what were their customers, how were they shopping, what were they telling them, how they were responding to their marketing, all of those things. How frequent were they shopping, what types of categories were they buying, what were they buying together, what profile of our customers do they look like, where are they in the country, all of that stuff. They were quite new to and didn't have any of it, and I was lucky enough to have a good some good people around me to sort of help me understand the ropes of retail. And yeah, that was did all sorts at Holland Barrett, managed the merchandising team for a bit, and I think because I was in a position where effectively I was the only person who was looking at customer insight in those early years, I was moving from marketing strategy to commercial strategy, value proposition, store location strategy, the whole thing. I was doing sort of bits of everything and trying to support lots of different teams, which is quite unique. I think nowadays analysts tend to get a small section of that. You're doing location analytics and you're the expert in location analytics. Because at the time it was quite an immature function, I was able to sort of spread the wings a little bit. So fast forward, last 3 years, I was running their digital trading and P&L for UK and Ireland. That's quite a large business, over 100 million in revenue, and a fair bit of their profit as well. But also looking after their loyalty program, that's got around 10 million active users across the 4 countries that it operates. Their email marketing with sort of like 4 million on the database, et cetera, et cetera. And then most importantly, and kind of more holistically, regardless of the channel, I was looking at how do we improve our omni-channel experience, so joining our online and offline channels together. And most importantly, how do we retain customers? Again, regardless of where those customers are shopping. So a lot of that was around the marketing to those customers, but I was also, because of my digital piece, making sure that our online experience was good, both on the site, on the app, aftercare, delivery, logistics, all those kind of elements that are important to it. So click and collect, subscription propositions, email marketing, push notifications, in-app message centers, et cetera, postal marketing. There was all sorts of elements to it. And I think, through that time, I think that sort of grounded quite a lot of passions for me, both in terms of how I like to lead, whether I really want to do this kind of sales element, or whether I want to focus on, I guess, which is really a marketing element, which is, retention marketing. And for me, I sort of sit mostly in the retention bit, but retention for me is, it's multifaceted. And I always say, like, you can have the best loyalty programs, apps, etc. in the world, but if your product's shit and your service is shit and you don't maintain your promises, put it in the bin and reinvest all that money in getting the basics right, because it's just pointless. So you got to get the basics right first, and my mantra was the whole of the business is responsible for retention, customer retention. It's not the job of the marketing team, and it's not the job of the operations team. It's the job of everyone. It's the job of the R&D team to make sure the products are absolutely fantastic. They taste good, because if they don't taste good, you're not going to buy it again, and therefore retention's gone. So it's everyone's job, and that's easy to say. It's quite difficult to put in as a cultural thing. But the only way to do that is to make sure that you've got a really strong customer strategy that's kind of at the beating heart of everything else that's going on.
And that takes you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I am consulting, so I'm doing exactly that. I've set up a business called Taran Limited. Taran's a bit of a funny word, but it's Welsh, and my wife's Welsh, so big up Wales. But I think Taran is it's a Welsh word that sort of means like a rocky outcrop or a crag, right, or a crevice. And the idea is that it's quite works quite well for consultancy. It's kind of like something that you're aiming towards, but you're also not quite sure if you're at the top or how to get to the top. So it's got kind of like a multifaceted element to it. But yeah, so I'm doing consulting for retailers and direct to consumer businesses, really focusing on what they're doing on their retention strategies, and that can be multifaceted. It can be everything from loyalty programs, from service, from email marketing, or it can be very specific on one of those elements. We've launched a subscription proposition, but it's not really either. It's not being very profitable, or the participation's a bit low, or we don't think the service is right, whatever it might be. So I go in, help those businesses to understand both what the commercial value is. I think with a lot of those elements, it's quite difficult sometimes to actually understand what is the profitability of that thing is doing. So working that out, and then looking at recommending ways to improve it. So that could be quick wins, could be more long-term strategic elements, could be UX, could be service, whatever.
Yeah, I got you. So why the fascination with customer retention? I mean, to me, I think I know, obviously lifetime value of a customer. How can you make more money out of the people that are already involved? Tell me more about that.
Well, it's exactly what you said. I just think, like for me, I get really annoyed when, as a consumer, when the service is and the experience is a bit crap.
And that can be across the board, like if it's you go in and there's someone working there and they're in a shit mood or stuff like that. Yeah,
you go into
the website.
I get really annoyed if I go into a store and like stuff's dirty. Mm-hmm. Shelves are half empty. I can't find anyone to serve me. I'll give you a good example, right? really, really basic example. I went to get some petrol last night at the petrol station, and it was quite late, so there was only one person in the booth. But they weren't in the booth; they were outside, like restocking the log piles and stuff. So he looked at me. Oh, and there was one person waiting to pay. Right? He looked at me, and I've got the nozzle in my car. And, they've got to press the button, right? And he looked at me, and he looked back and carried on stacking the logs for like another couple of minutes. And I was like, "Are you for real?" There's a guy in there trying to pay. He's looking at you as well, it's like little service elements like that for me where I have no time for any of that, because I know that that was a big supermarket. I know that if the corporate dudes in that supermarket knew what that service was like. Oh, and then I got into the store and he was playing like really loud, quite obnoxious music on his phone.
Doesn't seem right.
Yeah. And
customers are going, does this guy work here?
Yeah. And but all those things are like unmeasurable. I'm really passionate about trying to make your service as good as possible and your retention tactics as meaningful as possible, because I'm a consumer myself, right? And the bit I want to have is I want to have a great experience with that brand first and foremost. But then I also think brands have got a great opportunity to like showcase what they're all about. They've got that person, they're through the door, they've hopefully bought something. Right, well now what are you going to do with them? And that can be like multifaceted. The world's your oyster, right? But what are you going to talk to them about? Because you kind of want them to come and shop again. And I think retail's an interesting world, because retail is certainly sort of digital marketing elements. It's all about like, well, we're just going to hound you until you too many emails that you will get. We're going to hound you until you shop again. And that's because of the way a lot of the metrics are set up to measure it. But if I go back to like my days at Porsche, the marketing wasn't about like, you know, if you bought a car last week, they're not going to try and make you buy a car this week. That's not how you buy cars. I mean, there were a few people like that, but generally speaking, not many people buy a car every week. So, but what they would do, and what Porsche do really well, and actually a lot of the car companies, is they build aspiration, right? So you might not be a Porsche car owner, but you might want to be. You know, aspirationally, that's somewhere where you want to get to. So how do you build that aspiration from a young age, right? How do you build the desire subconsciously? And then when you've bought that car, what are you going to do to elevate that experience? Now, what Porsche did when I was there is they went and built a driving track at Silverstone, on the edge of Silverstone, which they've still got. And I don't know if they do it now, but when you bought your car, first car, you got invited to go on a Porsche test drive at their track with their Porsche professionals. Like, it was an incredible, like, brilliant day. But if you want to build like some real kind of emotional, relational loyalty, do stuff like that. Don't just go, do you want another one?
Well, do you know, I was thinking that because in that world with Porsche, which by the way I thought was Porsche, but clearly not. I've heard both.
The bloke's name, innit?
Right, yeah, fair. Right, so talking about retention there, you would assume, well, you bought your car now, how much more money can I get from you, as opposed to smaller items like you might get at, say, Holland Barrett, where you want people to be going in every week. How would they think about, you know, maybe upselling or cross-selling various bits at a company like Porsche? Yeah,
well, they've got their whole design collection, so you can, you know, buy the baseball caps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's aftercare, right? So it's service deals, MOT deals. It's kind of like.
But is it a fraction of the money to get after the initial sale, or is it more like, well, you know, we can?
No, for the franchises, like the service is really where they'll make quite a bit of their profit,
right?
You know, in the parts and stuff like that. The selling the car is a part of it, but you know, you can only sell so many of those. So no, it's the aftercare is massively important. And then what we also found was, when I was doing some of the work there, was people would buy a sort of a baby Porsche, you know, like a Boxster or a Cayenne, which is actually my favourite one. Not Cayenne, sorry, the Cayman. As a stepping stone to get to the 911, right?
Did they ever sell hats first and try and get people bought into the whole
culture?
Yeah.
I mean, there probably was a load of those people, and now that they're, you know, another decade in, they probably understand what those customers look like now, right?
We've got a pal who was here. I think it was maybe Ferrari, and he turned up in the hat and all that. It's like, you got a Ferrari now? It's like, no, not yet. No. It's like, you getting a new car? He's like, I can't say, but there will be signs. Something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, you would, if they bought a Boxster on finance, you start to sow the seed of like, when that finance deal is up, I've got a great 911 waiting for you. So you build that through over time, and it's the same in you know, more kind of consumer good retail, where you're looking for the signs that will suggest, okay, this customer is going to be interested in whatever it is next. So it's not just about, some of it can be replenishment, and actually a lot of the best personalization is just remind me what I bought last time, please, because it was 3-6 months ago, and you know, all of your pill bottles look exactly the same. So which one was, what strength was it, how many capsules was it, all that kind of stuff. So just remind me, because you're just removing friction from the repurchase experience, which is massively important and often overlooked. So remove all that friction as best you can, and then also look for signs of, okay, if this person is buying this, what should they also be buying because of what we know about the health of that, you know, the reasons of why they might be buying it, and what else are other people buying. It's the same reasons why Amazon will go, you know, other products recommended for you. You know, if you buy curtains from Dunelm, they're going to offer you curtain rings. So, you know, all of that expansion piece is massively important, and you can do that through direct marketing. You can do that through that Dunelm example. I got that when I went and picked up the curtains that my wife had ordered on Click and Collect, And I got into store and they went, do you want curtain rings without curtain hooks? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just here to do the pickup, but I tell you what, I better get some, hadn't I? Because if I don't, so I ended up buying them, and lo and behold, we didn't need them. So, you know, it depends on what that retailer looks like, and it depends on how they want to upsell, cross-sell, and then most importantly, reward those customers. So, and some of that stuff is, you know, that Porsche example about going on the driving track. That's not about upselling. That's just about saying thanks and trying to create a bigger connection to that brand,
which people will remember and talk about.
Yeah, you build advocates. So like loyalty is it's a bit of a dead word, right? I don't think anyone's really loyal to a brand, but you can build advocates, you can build stories, you can build word of mouth. There's a guy from Dr. Martens, another brand I really like, who's talking about, you know, they call it brand heat. And it's that sort of, you're elevating the brand through everything that you do. And you can do that through your normal marketing and your top of funnel marketing, but you can do it through your customers, because you want them to be talking about it. You want them to be talking about the partnerships, the collaborations, the cool stuff that you're doing.
Do you find yourself analysing your experience on things like Amazon and whatnot? Because it's the same deal when I listen to a song. I can't just enjoy the song. I'm going, I wonder what snare that is, or like, I wonder if that's a DI guitar, stuff like that. And I just analyse it. And same thing, like even if I go on Amazon, I know enough about sales and the way certain things work. I'm aware of various concepts anywhere. I'm like, I see what you're doing here. I see. I know I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to ignore it for a couple of days, then I'll get a discount code. Yeah, stuff like that. Do you find yourself doing the same thing, and you're just dissecting these customer experiences?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I spot when it's bad.
Yeah, that's something else I wanted to ask, and I'd almost forgotten about it. It's kind of like when you watch a good movie or a good edit on something, whether that's audio or video, and it's like the whole point is if it's good, you shouldn't notice it. Yeah. Sort of thing. Is it the same thing with customer experience? Should people be glowing off?
Absolutely.
Right.
Like, absolutely. So, yeah, the number one, just remove all the friction. Figure out where the pain points are in your business and get rid of them, because people don't want that. Like we were talking about Amazon earlier, right? Amazon have done that really well. They like that. Their whole business was built on, you know, brilliant logistics. We're going to get it to you faster than everyone else. Stock's going to be there. But that's fundamentally what they're about. And yeah, they've added all sorts of stuff on the top of it. But like, you don't have to be this mega brand that's got loads of great stories to tell and a great sort of corporate social responsibility. And you just have to do something really bloody good. And if you do it better than everyone else, doesn't matter what it is, customers will enjoy it, right? And a lot of that is about removing friction. And where that's going is particularly around personalization. I think people who do personalization well, they're not the ones who are going, "Hey Joe" in your email. They're the ones who are going, right, Joe's back on the site, on the website. We know what he likes. We're going to show that at the top of the screen. And then we're going to show, so that, you know, that you're personalizing the homepage, the PDP, the PLPs, all of those listing pages. We're making it so it's a one-touch checkout, because, you know, we've integrated with all the payment services. So it's simple. Every bit of friction is being removed. So it's quick, it's simple, it's easy. Because, you know, all those sites are measuring the dropout rates across every single touch point. The fewer touch points,
people literally set up retargeting ads for people at different points of the journey and whatnot.
Yeah, but in some ways that's a failure, right? I mean, you'll always get a bit of dropout, but the fewer touch points you can have to lead to a sale, the less dropout you'll get.
Of course.
And so
create an account. No, I'm done. I'm off to Amazon.
Well, yeah. But that is an interesting topic, right? Guest checkout. So the problem with a lot of retailers have, and they have this, it's a balance, right? The problem with guest checkout is you don't really know who that customer is, and particularly now with cookies being a bit more obvious.
So it's like a balance between, do I want to make this sale potentially deter them, or do I want to take that risk and then be able to remarket to them for free?
Do I want a guest checkout where they're anonymous, I can't personalize the experience, it's going to be a bit more friction, I won't be able to retarget them, but I'll get a higher conversion?
How do you make those decisions?
You just test and analyze the data, right? And then you commercially figure out what's the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we had guest checkout at Holland Barrett. I know I've been working with other brands who are bringing it in, actually don't have it. And that's possibly the right thing to do for businesses. But on the other side of it, you then got to go, right, if we're going guest checkout now, what is it that we are offering to that customer of value that means they're going to want to create an account?
Can that be something like after the sale? So if someone's bought something, be like, oh, sign up to claim this free, whatever.
Yeah,
I've seen things like that.
It could be 10% off if you create your account, right?
Yeah,
it could be anything, right?
Catch them after.
And then the other thing you want is, if they've got an account and they're coming back, how do you get them to sign in earlier than the checkout? Because most people sign in at checkout, so that I can then improve the personalization experience, right? Because if they're only signing in at checkout, time's gone. It's the same in retail, where generally it's a kind of loyalty card scan, but you're doing that at the checkout. And while you're in the store, you're anonymous. So if you look at the best brands who are doing something about that, you've got people like Amazon Go, where you're basically scanning in and it's cameras around the store. But if you look at someone like Waitrose, who have if you go and shop there, and you pick up the scanner so you can scan the barcodes as you go and then pay yourself. What that allows you to do is, actually, I am identifying myself early on, which means that I can start personalising that journey for them. I can start going, oh, Sam, but don't forget you got a 3 for 2 on steaks or whatever it might be, right? Mm. So just the ability to do all of that, it starts to layer up. So you might go, we need a guest checkout because we need the conversion rate. How do I get people to sign in? What's the value add? How do I get people to sign in early? What's the value add then? And making that really clear for customers is difficult, but that's where the sort of magic happens. And you have to be true to the brand to do that. If it's all discount, it's just going to hit the bottom line. You start to question whether it's the right thing to do. It might be the right thing to do. You might analyze it and it might be great. And 2 years down the line, you got new senior stakeholders and they start going, why are you discounting all the time?
I got you. So this is specifically online though, isn't it? And it'd be good to get into more things like you said. You might go into a shop and be like, oh, right, why is there a big queue? That was an interesting one, because you're effectively, it would be good to talk about this as well, like exactly what you do when you walk into a company with a new client and be like, where do you begin? In fact, let's talk about that now. Let's say you start chatting with a new client, like, okay, let's improve your customer retention rate, because then you can sell to them more times, they can have a smoother experience, and that'll generate more word of mouth and, as you say, company heat. Where do you even begin? Because there's so many things you have to look at, particularly in retail where it's physical and digital.
You start by figuring out what the problem is.
Yeah.
So you start by you start with a chat, right? Like, you need to figure out what the problem is, or what the challenge is that the business has got.
Does it usually boil down to like, we want to make more money or stop losing money? Obvious pitfalls.
Probably at the heart of it, yeah. But it certainly, businesses aren't quite clear on what they want or what they need. So you have to start picking away at it. So, for example, you might have, let's say you got a loyalty program, right? Mm-hmm. And you're mainly a retail business, and you've got a loyalty program, and I might have a starting conversation that is something like, oh, come and help us figure out what we're doing with this loyalty program. And I'll go, why? Because, what do you actually want? And why do I need to come in and do that? Is it because you're not realizing the value from the loyalty program? You're not quite sure what commercially it's delivering? Is it because customers are telling you it's shit? Is it because people aren't actually signing up for it? What is the what's the root cause of the problem? Because if it's I don't know, people aren't engaging with it. They've got loads of people signing up, but they're not then using it. It points to a different type of problem that would be if actually we're just not acquiring customers and they're not joining the program. So you've really got to start back to basics to say, okay, look, what are the root problem statements? They've recent client where the problem was they had a really low retention rate of new customers. And I was able to come in and sort of give them some benchmarks of, well, what should that new customer retention rate look like, and why do I think they've got a problem with it, and therefore what are my recommendations for improving it. So and again, that can be multifaceted too. So yeah, I think you've got to go in with that, and we were talking about it upstairs, but an element of sort of product thinking, which is getting to the root cause of the why. You mentioned queuing earlier, and we were talking about that, weren't we? It's like if customers are telling you, I mean, this is more of a CX thing, but and a satisfaction thing, but if customers are telling you your queues are too big in the store, the resolution isn't necessarily employ more staff. The resolution, you got to go, well, why are the queues too big? It might be 3 of the tills were faulty and not working, right? So we couldn't physically open more. It might be all the staff are doing back office stuff because we're on paper and clipboard still, and we've got no system, so we're having to do stock checks all the time. It might be we had too much sickness and we don't have the flexibility in our workforce to backfill. So you keep asking the why questions that gets you to, well, why do we have a problem with our queues? And then you've got something you can fix. And I think, if I'm doing an assignment that's around customer satisfaction, a lot of businesses employ like NPS, like Net Promoter Score. If you get one of those questions that's on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? Right? That's the NPS question. And it's well used because it's easy to understand. So corporately, it's a single measure, works well to the exec, but it is completely unactionable. You can't use it to resolve. If someone's give you a 0, you can't use that for. Okay, well, why? Why have they done that? And even when they tell you why, it's quite difficult to do, and you tend to get a bit of a U shape in terms of the results. You either get great results, loads of people saying you're brilliant, or people saying you're shit, and not much in the middle. So you need to ask more satisfaction questions that actually get you to a actionable insight that then delivers an improvement in NPS. So yeah, all these things can ladder up to what are the things that we need to improve in our business to either improve customer satisfaction, improve experience, or improve some of our marketing retention that actually makes people feel rewarded, thanked, loved, liked, ready for the next purchase, whatever it might be. And the best brands are trying to do that in a really profitable way, because profit is being squeezed particularly in the retail space. And it's being squeezed because there's a squeeze on workforce pay, and there's a squeeze on costs, production costs, like everything. There's a squeeze everywhere, right? Corporation tax, whatever it might be. So you have to, businesses are looking at everything that they're doing, and they're doing that with a critical eye, and things like loyalty programs and discounting, they can be an easy way to sort of go, well, I can improve my profit if I just remove them. But if you do that, then you
might lose everything.
You might lose everything, yeah. Like, I was looking on LinkedIn the other day, and there was some chat about Pizza Express, right? They got a new app, which is performing really well for them. But if you go back 5-10 years ago, you'd never go to a Pizza Express and pay full price, would you?
Tesco vouchers.
Yeah, vouchers, they were everywhere, but you'd never pay full price at Pizza Express. And it's a slippery slope. If all you've got to talk about is deals and discounts, that is a slippery slope on for a profitable business.
Mate, it's like Domino's. It's always, well, which deal am I going to get? Like, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone in their right mind that's ever paid full price for a Domino's.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's just way too much. But it's always spend 40 quid and get 40% off, or, get these 2 pizzas and it's 50% off. And have they ever, did it just, when someone does buy one full price, they're just like, idiots.
And it's really, really challenging to get out of that spiral, to get out of that discounting spiral. But if you're Domino's and you're doing 40% when you spend 40 quid, what do you do next year when you come to anniversary that deal? Do you do the same and hope that it's got the same resonance, or do you now do 45% off?
Yeah.
It becomes an ever decreasing circle of profit if you're not careful.
So you would always advise companies to stay away from discount as the reason to be purchasing?
No, it's great for discounts. Great, nothing wrong with discounts, but you got to know why you're doing it. And I think what you tend to find is most businesses, a lot of the discounts is actually not driving what it should do, which is acquisition. It's driving repeat customers to come back. And the question is then, well, is there a different way that I can bring customers back that doesn't mean I have to discount all the time? Discounting in really great clothing companies is reserved for stock clearance, really, right? Having to discount things when it's the new season line range, people don't do that because they want to sell it at full price, but they've got to clear the autumn stock to get in the winter or spring stock, or whatever it might be. It's very different in different. It's very different in groceries, very different in health and supplements. It's very different in hospitality. But if you know what you're trying to do with those discounts and you're measuring the success of it based on that, then you're in a good place. So if you're going, right, I'm going to do this 40% off 40 when you spend £40, and what I really want to drive is customers who haven't come and bought a pizza for 3 months or whatever. I want to get them back in, and because I know that'll drive X and Y and Z. If it does that, great. But if you're just doing it and just measuring total sales at the back of it, you're sort of missing the point. And you see that quite a lot with businesses who are effectively on a sales cycle. So they're anniversarying what they've done before. They're trying to find a way to make it look better. It was a bit like, do you remember HMV? Mm-hmm. You're old enough to know HMV.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
The HMV, every year it was HMV's biggest ever sale. Do you remember it? Like every year, HMV.
I was shocked. I think there's one still open in New York.
Yeah. But, and I mean, that was the grand old days of CDs, right?
Yeah.
And all they would do is they'd just put like one extra CD on sale every year. That's all they need to do, right? We'll just put one more on.
Yeah.
But it's just that slippery. But if they knew what they were doing, if they knew how to slightly back away from that, which is actually what Pizza Express have done, they've backed away just slightly from having to discount everything all the time. Mm-hmm. And they're doing that through, a loyalty app proposition. They're doing it through different things. You only need to take 2% of your discount and you'll make 5, 10, 20% on your underlying profit, right? So you've just got to be quite careful with what that commercial proposition looks like that can also drive retention. So again, what we were talking about earlier, in that like retention marketing and retention propositions and customer retention as a topic is not any one department's job. It's everyone's job. It's the commercial team's job to carve out a certain level of what their commercial strategy looks like, or discounting strategy, for customers who are already part of your brand.
Mate, it's exactly what we were saying upstairs earlier. It's like someone I spoke with on a previous podcast. It's like, all right, I'll do my part, I'll do my creative ads, but then if they get to your website and it sucks, it's like, whose fault is that? So it's interesting you say everyone has to be on the same page there, because you could do everything, all this marketing, everything that leads to this perfect storm where someone's finally gone to a physical retail shop and then there's just no one there.
Yeah. Sign of a bad business is doing it. Sign of a good business doing it. So a bad business would go, marketing team, do all of their great stuff, look at all these new customers that I've got through the door, and they'll throw a stone and go, but operationally, you've done a crap job and half of them didn't buy anything because your experience was crap, either in store or online, whatever it might be. That's the sign of a bad business. Sign of a good business would go, marketing team would come in and go, look at all these great new customers we've brought through the door. Isn't it a shame we didn't quite get enough of those to sale? Do we understand what the root cause is for that? And hopefully that operational team will go, well, yeah, we've got this problem that we're trying to solve. Now, what a really good business will do is go, okay, well, maybe we need to invest more money in solving that problem, right? Maybe, therefore, we should reduce the marketing spend while we resolve that problem and reinvest. That's not really how budgets work in large businesses. They kind of go, well, here's my marketing budget, which is mine. I need to retain that, because if I don't, then I'll never get it back. And here's my operational budget, and never the two will cross. And I think, if you've got a business that really thinks horizontally about customer at the heart of things, they will flex that budget accordingly, but stay within their financial means and to do the best that they can for all their customers.
Can your job be complete? As in, can you go into a company and be like, right, that's it, we've solved everything. No. That's it. Can't be done. What affects it?
Well,
social changes.
Yeah, social. Social. It's a bit like, just take something simple like, let's say something simple, email marketing, right? That's never something that's ever going to be done. I've got the perfect, engagement rates are fantastic.
Things that used to work.
As good as it. Yeah. I mean, it's a channel that is on a bit of a industry decline, I think, because people just get too many emails, and they're sort of switching off from that channel, and they're switching on to social a bit more, and sort of those sorts of elements. But you're constantly looking for ways to improve it. It might be new content. Certainly with the way tech is now, you want to try and scale your personalization. So the emails that you receive and the emails that I receive are going to be different. There's particularly improvements on things like send time optimization, and so it's just a never-ending thing that you're tweaking. But the way that you're going to tweak that is by having people who are really knowledgeable and experts on what they do, but who also can blend an element of data analytics. So when they do those tests, they can do those tests independently, they can analyze them independently, and they can go, oh, look, that thing worked. So shall we do more of that?
How much of it is science versus art in this kind of thing? Like you said, some of it's data.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of, there's a lot of like product and agile development thinking now, which is great in theory and quite difficult to do if you're to deliver pure agile into a business. But totally believe in like this kind of 80-20 rule, right? You only need to do 80% of the thing to get the most out of it. So it is just about tweaking and testing and trialing, and because businesses are getting to grips with their customer data and just their data platforms, they're getting more single customer views, and analyzing that data is becoming simpler for people who aren't technical. Just the speed of testing and the speed of doing things is gathering pace, and that just allows you to just refine a lot quicker. But it never ends. I think that the thing that will end it is when businesses kind of go, actually, we need to reinvest our time in other things.
I got you.
So, but you can always improve it.
What do you think things might be like in the future? Because like you were talking about there, things that once worked now don't work. And it's wild to see how quickly things do need tweaking. I think back to, there's a podcast I listened to called Mr. Ballin. It's all about the strange, dark and mysterious. And there was, you go back to the infancy of the internet, and this guy ended up on one of the earliest chat rooms, and he was a married guy, had kids, and he ended up falling in love with tall, hot blonde or something, and like you'd never met her. There's like one picture of her, and you look at that now and it's like, how did someone fall for that? Because it's so obviously silly now compared to what we know and understand socially. No one would fall for it. But that was not long ago in the grand scheme of evolution. Yeah. So I wonder what things might be something we have to pivot towards, and like, people now don't fall for that. Hi, Joe. It's like, I know you didn't write my name. I know you're not writing this, but people might have seen that as, oh, this is personalised, and they're actually talking to me once upon a time. Less of a thing now. Where do you think things are headed?
Well, I mean, I almost hate bringing this subject up, but it is going to be, AI is going to just completely blow everything out of the water. I mean, the more I talk to people about this, the more, not scary is the wrong word, but just how impactful this is going to be, both on the way businesses work, the types of jobs that are going to be available. It's going to be massively different. So, and I think where this is going to, and I'm seeing this from someone else who was talking about it, but this will really accelerate when your phone companies, your Apples and Googles and all those kind of people have integrated their AI systems into their hardware. So if you take Apple, they've launched Apple Intelligence now, which is basically their AI system that will be in your hardware. Now, what that will allow is, and they've also released a patch now that allows the developers of apps to allow Apple Intelligence basically into your apps. So Apple Intelligence can go into the apps that are on your phone and start to nerd themselves out and understand what's going on. So what that will allow you to do is you can go, hey Siri, can you book my hair appointment? And it'll just do it for you, because it'll put it in your calendar. It knows when you're free. It knows where you get your hair. It's connected to your payment devices, and so suddenly it's your PA, right? Oh, Siri, can you book me a 2-week touring holiday to Georgia? I don't know, wherever. Yeah. And it'll just do it, right? It'll do it, and it will go, right, here's your holiday. I've booked your car. I've booked your transfers from the airport. I've got you 4 different hotels, within your budget. It'll just do it. And that's suddenly where that gets quite scary, but also gets pretty cool, because where brands come in is, so they're also talking about agentic AI. So that's sort of assistant AI. Agentic AI will also then go, okay, if you're a brand, and let's say you go, hey Siri, can you buy all my weekly groceries again, please? Same as last week. Oh, just add another pint of semi-skim milk on them, right? And what agentic AI will do is it will look at your supermarket and it'll understand the stock levels. So it's going into the back office of those businesses and going, we're a bit low on Joe's favourite ice cream.
That's just like we were saying earlier. It's, won't do online shopping anymore because they always send crap versions of stuff. Yeah. Sometimes they don't have what you want, and it's like, sure, they'll offer to send replacements or alternatives, but I don't want that because then I can't make that meal. Yeah,
but your AI, so you can sort of see where that's going, because they might go, oh, I need to speak to Joe, the AI. I need to speak to Joe and tell him that they haven't got his favourite chocolate ice cream anymore. So,
oh my!
But I've got this other one that's on offer. But what that allows is you've then got the back office systems of a retailer talking to your AI assistant, and your back office systems are going to go in. Can you push Joe to buy, this slightly more expensive ice cream, because we really want him to buy that? But what you can also do, though, if you think about it, is because a lot of retailers now are selling advertising to brands, although club card prices, all those kind of things. Really, that's a way of a brand. A brand is footing a lot of the discounting of that. So what you can also then do is kind of go, a brand that might be interested in Joe might be going, can you get Joe to buy my toothpaste now, please? And so you have this sort of like AI playoff in the background that you're not even involved in anymore. You're not even aware of, because you're not placing the order now. You're just letting your assistant do it. So like, you can sort of see how this starts to spin when it starts to gather pace. And it's kind of a weird world where you'll feel in control, but you're not really in control of it, right? You're saving a load of time. You're probably saving a load of money, but you're not quite in control.
Way too much influence based on all sorts.
But it's that the social, the cultural thing there. It's the whole fake news. Donald Trump, right? But you're seeing it now. You're seeing virtual versions of people coming on, and
I was just going to say as well. Like, I watched the whole Joe Rogan, Elon Musk thing recently, and he was talking about that. He says 20 years tops, there'll be more humanoid robots than there are people, just how there's more guns than there are people in the world. He reckons like everyone will have their own sort of personal R2D2, and which sounds wild now, but we all got used to it with our phones. And then they'll be able to do things. So that might even be like, will there even be humans working at retail shops anymore, or will they just be deploying these workhorses?
Yeah, but I think it will come full circle, right?
Yeah,
over time, because there'll be this big, massive explosion of it, and it will be partly scary, but also we live in a society where we're generally quite time poor. So initially it'll be like, oh, can all this free time get in now? I don't have to go to the shops anymore. I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that. But humans are social creatures. We crave human interaction, right? So things that deliver those experiences will work really well. That's why, a lot of retail brands have been talking about how their shops are more about experiences now. They're places to hang out. It's why you still go and see your favourite bands, music venues, right? Because just listening to them on Spotify or whatever, it doesn't really cut the mustard. So I think some of that will come full circle because people will still crave human interaction, I think. Unless it goes full Ready Player One and we're just stuck on some virtual headset all day. It
is a thing, isn't it? You hear about some of the younger generation now who are kind of dipping out of technology, and they'll do things like read a book. Like my wife reads physical books, and it's a bit of a she's got a Kindle too, but she barely goes on it. It's more of a statement of like there's something about the OG way. And you're right, maybe we will get to that point where we have all this convenience at our fingertips, but then we'll be like, but are we even living?
Yeah. But Holland Barrett, go back to that example where one of their key brand pillars is they deliver trusted advice to their customers about their health issues through their colleagues, mainly in store, but also on the phone, online. And they do that because they train their staff up and they train them up to a level that they're able to do that really successfully. Well, if you go back to that other world where it become, trust is difficult, and there's so much news about wonder pills and things that are right and wrong. That's going to be even more difficult to figure out what's real and what isn't. And so the brands who can actually deliver that kind of human experience, that trust, those elements of difference will play out really well, I think. And there are brands that are doing it. Why do people buy luxury goods? Part of it is, it's just a coat at the end of the day, but you do it because you feel like the value exchange is worthwhile because either the aftercare is brilliant, obviously the craftsmanship's there, but also the experience you get when you're in the store is brilliant, right? So you go and you're quite happy to spend whatever it is for that coat.
Final thing I want to speak to you about, what are some actionable things every company, big or small, can start looking at today to start improving customer retention? Or just looking for common things where they're all falling down. Certain things you might go into company after company and be like, oh, they also didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about that either.
You gotta start with the money, right? So I think one of the things that people don't do very well is measure their customer value over a longer period of time. So rather than just measuring it in the moment, you've got to understand what is, by acquiring this customer, what's the value of that customer over 1, 2, 3 years, however long you want to do it for. I haven't said lifetime value because lifetime is a bit of a weird one. And there's a few commentators now kind of going, well, is it really lifetime? And most importantly, you got to do it at a profit level, because a lot of businesses will go, they're measuring revenue. But
I hate that. I've heard so many people talk about lifetime value, and they're always like, oh, blah, blah, look, you get 10 grand off a customer, so you can afford to spend 7 grand and you made 3 grand. It's like, no.
Profit, please.
Yeah, profit, please.
Can't bank revenue.
Yeah. No,
and underlying profit, not gross margin. Yeah. Underlying profit after all of the expenses, right? Yeah, measure profit, because what that allows you to do is you can very quickly get to business cases to say, if I do this, it will make you this, and I'm going to test this, and it's made us this. So first and foremost, measure that, and you might need to invest in your analytical capabilities to do it. I think the second thing is I try and build a culture of curiosity in your teams, and some level of analytical capability across your teams. So one of the things I find is there's too many people in teams who don't really want to look at the numbers. They want to do what they do, but they don't actually want to assess the performance of what it's driven,
even though that dictates what they should do.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll be very surface, just surface deep. So I think you've got to employ this kind of culture of assessment. And the other thing with that is people ask really bad questions. So even if you've got a great insight team, analytics team, if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. So again, all of that is part of this culture of understanding insight and analytics, data, but then also being curious about what are my customers doing. So yeah, understand things at a profit level, be curious about what your customers are doing and how they're reacting to the things that you're trying, whether that be new products, whether that be marketing, whether that be different service experiences. Yeah, I would probably say start with that. Because what you'll get to quite quickly is you'll either get some alarms going off because you realise, oh, that thing I was doing isn't actually that profitable, or it's not making any difference. Or you'll start to uncover more questions that leads to, more insight. But either way, you start to go down a path that probably you weren't going down before. And you'll start to understand what's really going to make a difference rather than what's just going to keep me busy in a job.
We'll call it there. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Pleasure.